News came out last week that the Sangamon County Circuit Clerk, Paul Palazzolo, was looking at a new job and heading to Indianapolis to lead up Kiwanis International. To get more detail about that and really just to reflect on his career in politics in Sangamon County, Paul Palazzolo joins us. Paul, thanks for taking time with us this morning.
Good morning, Greg, and to all, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, no question. And live in studio with us, and if you're watching online, you'll be able to see Paul's beautiful face.
Paul, there's a lot of face to see, too.
We were just talking off air about, the humor that you've developed over the years, and how I think we both were kind of thrown off a bit last year when you were on the stage at the Republican.
Or 2 or 3 years ago.
Was it? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Time's just all blended together for me.
It blurs together.
Yeah, it does. But at a recent Republican rally at the state fair, you had some jokes, and they were. Yeah, a throwback to like Bob Hope.
Absolutely.
But for some reason, it made statewide headlines that you were giving bad jokes. And
none of those jokes were original. They were all written by some of Bob Hope's team thousands of years ago, and they were appropriate for political figures at the time. Times have changed, obviously, but I think that's unfortunate that times have changed. Even Jerry Seinfeld has lamented that comedy is getting rougher because of people's sensitivities, and he's kind of, to the point of Jerry Seinfeld saying something about how comedy is not as able to be as honest as it could be,
right,
and to be as humorous as it could be. But back to that, the state fair thing. None of those jokes were original. They were all from either Bob Hope or others of that era. And but in some of the folks who were unhappy with some of those things, when I would comment, and I'm heavy myself, I'm taller lying down than I am standing up, and I wear a watch on both arms because I cover 2 time zones. But some of the lines that I used in reference to Governor Pritzker, it was okay for the left to make fun of Governor Chris Christie,
sure,
and his weight. But you can't touch a left-leaning Democratic governor for the same reasons.
Well, what did you think of the blowback there? Because I noticed some of the other reporters, being in the reporter pool there, watching you guys on stage with your speeches and whatnot. And I noticed when you were giving jokes, some of the other reporters were looking kind of disgusted, and I knew, I was like, well, somebody's going to make a deal out. So I talked with you afterwards and got that out across the state. But what was your reaction to the reporting based off of that?
My reaction was, what's wrong now that wasn't wrong 15, 20 years ago? It was just cognitively difficult to understand because we should be able to point out some things about elected officials. And I'm open to it as well. Holy mackerel! I'm heavy and sometimes not so bright. I can take it. We should all be able to take it if we're in a public role.
Yeah, no question, especially as a talk radio show host as well. Paul Palazzolo with us. Don't want to focus all on that. Let's talk about the genesis of you in political life, but also the genesis of you in Kiwanis life.
Sure.
So how did you get your start in politics?
Well, I was basically, my parents they voted, but they had no involvement really in the political arena. They voted, and that was about it. I kind of really got involved. Basically, my first interest in politics was watching the presidential debate between Ronald Reagan and Jimmy Carter.
Oh, wow.
And just watching how Carter was making points that were, just kind of not inappropriate, but off base for what we were needing in the country at the time. The United States at that time was experiencing some really depressing economic news, some
record inflation, high energy prices, energy shortages.
Internationally, we were weak, perceived as weak with the hostage situation in Iran. And Reagan was making good points. And pointing out to Carter that his points were irrelevant with the line of "there you go again." And when Reagan closed with "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?" I was answering there in my living room, watching this on the screens, like, "No, my family is not." So then I got involved, and my real first entry into public service was working for Secretary of State Jim Edgar, and there on his team, I learned about fiscal responsibility and how to be forthright and honest with the public as a public servant. Jim Edgar was a great Secretary of State, and proactive and making good changes in his role as Secretary of State. And then as governor, I moved over to the governor's office when he moved over to the governor's office and saw what a good governor is like. So Jim Edgar's style of political public service leadership was what got me interested in getting more involved rather than just from the team effort and to actually be involved. And then after a couple of roles in state agencies, it was asked to serve as Sangamon County Auditor in 2002. Was appointed to the role to fill a vacancy from Tom Kavanaugh's move from auditor to treasurer, and served as county auditor for about 13 years. And then when the vacancy of circuit clerk came up, I was asked to fill that vacancy. Served in there now 8 years. The elected arena is a fascinating experience, Greg. You get to visit with people and learn from them, learn what they want. And basically, in the circuit clerk's role, and not necessarily in the auditor's role was to be the fiscal watchdog for Sangamon County. Right. The circuit clerk's role was really customer service. You just worked hard to provide what customers needed if they needed to be involved in the Sangamon County court system.
Right. Paul Palazzolo with us on WMAY with Springfield's Morning News, talking about the genesis of his political career, but we also got to talk about the genesis of your career with the Kiwanis.
Absolutely.
So I guess, when did that start for you?
Well, I joined the Key Club at Griffin High School in 1980 as a freshman. And learned about service, because we did our own service projects as a Key Club, and leadership. And Key Club is sponsored by, around the world, it was sponsored by Kiwanis clubs. It's a part of what we call the Kiwanis family of organizations. And so I learned about Kiwanis from my involvement in Key Club, and how to learn from adults who cared about helping young people learn those values of service and leadership. I joined Kiwanis, the Kiwanis Club of Springfield, right after I graduated from high school. And there I learned even further about what it's like to give back to the community as a volunteer in a club of other like-minded individuals who wanted to make a difference. And so I discovered that the Kiwanis Club of Springfield was just more than the Kiwanis Club of Springfield. There are Kiwanis clubs around the globe. And
this is all before the internet. This was all before, people knew about,
absolutely.
Well, there's a club over here, and they're all part of the same interconnected organization and whatnot.
And Kiwanis is one of the 3 largest service club organizations in the world.
Didn't know that.
And Rotary, Lions, and Kiwanis are the big 3. And so we as a group work to help communities be better places to live. And individually, clubs do their own service projects without any real direction from Kiwanis International. But we're there to provide guidance and help those clubs thrive and survive. And so I had a chance to serve as Kiwanis International president, getting involved in leadership roles. And so as Kiwanis International president in 2009, I had a chance to lead the organization as the volunteer president to help steer the organization toward increased service and increased leadership. And I, ironically, as international president leading the International Board of Trustees that year, I hired the current executive director. That's there now retiring.
Wow.
Yeah. And so now this executive director is retiring, and the Kiwanis International president currently asked me if I was interested. And so the International Board of Trustees came to me to say, would you be willing to serve as executive director of Kiwanis International? I was humbled and honored, and I said,
sure.
Give me some time to think about this and figure it out. And I actually said yes, and here we are. I'll be serving as, now the president and the Board of Trustees are the leaders of the organization.
Sure. Yep.
The executive director, because they're all volunteers, the executive director is the paid staff person that leads the team in the headquarters in Indianapolis to help the Kiwanis Club organization help other clubs be the best they can be.
Right.
That's the whole reason for the existence of that employee structure, is to get resources out to local clubs around the world, whether it's in Belgium or Taiwan, to help clubs in the local arena in their communities be the best.
So when does this change happen for you? And I know that I read you're going to be actually kind of traveling between Springfield and Indianapolis. When does this change happen for you?
The change will officially be October 1.
Okay.
I'll start in that executive director role on October 1, working with the current executive director as he retires, and kind of like a transition of leadership there. And it'll be. Obviously, remote work is
Sure,
a phenomenon that we've just now experienced to be is even better than we could have imagined.
Right.
So I will still be headquartered here in Springfield, working remotely, and then also in person in Indianapolis when there's major events or things that need direct involvement with the staff there.
Sure.
There's a staff of about 120 individuals in Indianapolis at the Kiwanis International headquarters that I'll be working with.
Right.
And they're a good team. And again, our whole purpose is to help Kiwanis clubs around the world be the best they can be in providing service and helping leadership skills in those adults.
Well, stay with us. I want to talk a little bit more with Paul Palazzolo, reflecting on his time in politics, and in particular, what you've noticed change over the past few decades you've been involved in politics. So we'll talk about that next year, live in studio with Paul Palazzolo on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk, now 721 from Culver's West on Wabash.
It's time to apply at Culver's West on Wabash.
All right, back at it with Paul Palazzolo just for a few more minutes here on Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY. Paul Palazzolo is the Sangamon County Circuit Clerk, but he's getting ready to transition to be the Executive Director of Kiwanis International. And Paul, thanks for sticking around for a bit here.
Thank you.
Talk about, I guess, the changes you've seen in public life over the past 20 or 30 years or so. Not just in politics, but in public life itself.
Sure. Well, certainly technology has helped change things. It's been a lot easier to communicate with the public, to get your message out. Facebook and other, Instagram and other, platforms have allowed us to communicate better. What I've learned too is we've got to focus more on what the public is desiring out of their elected officials. I'm very proud to have done a lot of things in the circuit clerk's office and in the county auditor's office. The circuit clerk's office, some of the high-level accomplishments were, passport Saturdays, making passports an opportunity for folks to get new or renewal passports out of the circuit clerk's office, and we go to various locations throughout the county on a Saturday morning so that folks don't have to drive to downtown. Right. Very proud of that accomplishment, and that's helped a lot of folks get what they need to get done. We also did convenience court on Fridays to help people handle their traffic ticket situations on a Friday afternoon from 12 to 1 if they couldn't necessarily make their court date. So I was very proud of that accomplishment.
Well, and if I could just pause there for a moment, because COVID brought all kinds of changes that you had to manage.
Exactly.
With at first courthouses were essentially closed, and then they allowed for remote access to the courts. So you had to manage all of that.
We did, and in concert with the judges in Sangamon County and in concert with the state's attorney's office, we did a lot of positive things. We even did Zoom traffic court, which was helpful for citizens who needed to take care of their traffic tickets without coming downtown. So very proud of a lot of the things that we did in partnership with the judges and the state's attorney's office. One of the things that people can be really proud of is how Sangamon County government reacts to their needs and responds to serving the taxpayers well. One of the things that a friend told me that I have to check with Don Gray in the county clerk's office to see if I'm told that in 2020 I received, for a county-wide elected official in an election, received the highest number of votes ever in a county-wide election. So I got to verify that, but by virtue of the turnout in 2020.
Do you get like a certificate?
I don't think
that's
so.
The case?
I think you get as a line from Blazing Saddles, you get a Laurel and Hardy handshake. But anyway, and there may not be a lot of folks listening who understand the humor of that. So yeah, I got to check that out. But that's a unique accomplishment. And in terms of Kiwanis, one of the things that our Kiwanis Club right here locally is doing is a service project called Laundromat Libraries, where we are, our Kiwanis Club and a few of our members, Amanda Brown and Dave Newton and Jay Bollinger and Tim Eggleston, are working on getting a little corner in laundromats and at the Salvation Army and other locations at the Y for kids' books to be available. And if kids want to take those books, they're welcome to. We restock those laundromat libraries, or little libraries we call them. So that's been a fascinating service project that has garnered a lot of positive attention for our service club in Kiwanis. So those are some of the things and the idea behind that, Greg, is We stole that idea from a Kiwanis club in Pennsylvania. And so without Kiwanis International helping to provide those resources, which is what I'll be kind of doing as executive director, is getting those success stories out there that other clubs can emulate and then make a positive impact in their communities.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of like what I'll be doing, is providing that conduit, that link from success story to clubs that need success stories.
Paul, finally here, any advice you have for younger people who want to make a difference in their community?
Get involved and get involved in your community from a service standpoint and a leadership standpoint, and help people recognize what you're willing to do to better the community. And when you have that reputation of doing well for those and for others, then people will want to see you do other things in the elected world. And then that's the best way to get involved in elected official service, is to get involved in your community and make it a better place to live.
Paul Palazzolo, Sangamon County Circuit Clerk, soon to transfer over to be the Executive Director of Kiwanis International. Greatly appreciate you taking the time with us this morning. And stay in touch.
I will.
All right, let me know how I can help spread the word of what's going on with Kiwanis.
Absolutely.
All right?
Thank you.
Absolutely. It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's news and